Well, welcome. Welcome to this evening's Committee of Adjustment meeting. Members of the public, applicants, agents, and staff may be participating this evening either in person or virtually via Zoom. Public meetings have been called and notice circulated for in accordance with the Planning Act with respect to applications for minor variances and or consent. The purpose of public meetings are to inform and provide the public with an opportunity to ask questions and to express views with respect to the applications. The format of the public meeting is as follows. Township staff will explain the purpose of the application and report on all correspondence received. Next, the applicant will present any further relevant information. Next, the public will be permitted to ask questions and express views on the proposal, and then the public portion of the meeting will be closed. And next, members of the committee will be given an opportunity to ask questions for clarification of the application. After all comments have been received, the committee will consider the application with due regard to the presentations and views expressed this evening. The committee will then do one of three things: approve the application, deny the application, or defer the application pending receipt of additional information. Specified persons who've either provided oral submissions or written objections but disagree with the committee's decision on an application may appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal as entitled under the Planning Act. The deadline for an appeal of consent applications is 20 days within the giving of the notice, and for minor variances within 20 days of the decision date. When commenting on an application, please give your full name and address for the minutes. Please note that the names and addresses of those individuals who speak at this meeting will appear within the meeting minutes, which are public documents. If you wish to receive a copy of the decision, please leave your name and address for the township staff. So going through the agenda on item number B, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, going to move on. Can I call for a motion for adoption of the minutes? So I have a motion that's moved by member Bossy, second by member Gunby, that the minutes of the January 17th, 2023 Committee of Adjustment meeting be adopted as printed and distributed. And I call for a vote. All those in favor? We are carried. There's no adjourned applications, so we're moving on to new applications. So would township staff briefly introduce the application and report on any written response to the notice circulated for agenda item E1, which is an application for minor variance identified as A-03-23.
Thank you, Chair. So our first application this evening is minor variance A0323 Kent for lands located at 2929 Telford Line. We have a key map of the subject property. It's located in a more agricultural and rural area of the township, located along Telford Line between Cambrian and Stockdale Road. The 2022 aerial imagery, the first picture on the left here, shows an overview of the entire property, the boundary outlined in red, and along with the wooded areas that occupy most of the property. The second image is a zoom in of the developed portion of the lands. There is a small pond here, an existing dwelling located here, and then the garage that is subject to the application is located here. There is a couple other accessory buildings on the property, which we will get to a little bit later in the application here. So an overview of the application: the applicant is proposing to construct an addition to the existing detached garage. The proposed addition has been kept in close geographical proximity to the existing development and would not project further into any key natural heritage features. The size of the accessory structure has been kept to a scale where it remains incidental and subordinate to the principal building, being the dwelling. So the table below just summarizes what the minor variance that is requested this evening. Being an increased accessory building size. Typically, the zoning bylaw allows accessory buildings to be 75% of the floor area of the principal dwelling up to a maximum of 110 square meters. The applicant is proposing 76% with a total area of 156 square meters. So here we have a site plan that shows about the first half of the property in from the road. Again, you can see that pond here, the existing dwelling located here, and then the proposed garage. This area is the existing with the footprint of the proposed addition here. And again, just kind of a zoom in there so you can see it a bit better, the existing garage and then the proposed addition. This slide shows some of the site photos. This one's taken standing in front of the dwelling, looking towards that existing garage, which is proposed to be expanded out to the left. This picture here is showing the mature vegetation that exists within, along the roadway, which does act to buffer and mitigate any impacts of the structure, helping to have it blend into the property. And then this photo here is taken kind of in front of where the addition would be, looking towards the house. It is important for the committee to note that this dwelling does have a basement that does count towards its floor area. So therefore, when calculating the percentage in relation to the size of the garage to the size of the dwelling, the basement area does count in that floor area. So generally, staff are supportive of the application. There is, it's been demonstrated that the resulting building would continue to be incidental and subordinate to the principal dwelling. Mr. Morgan did prepare a planning justification report, which went into a detailed policy analysis with respect to the application, and staff do generally concur with the opinion expressed in there. So staff are supportive of the application, subject to the conditions being that taxes are paid, the construction be in substantial compliance with the plans submitted with the application, the existing vegetation be preserved and enhanced as much as possible. And the last condition is just that the applicants enter into a demolition agreement with the municipality to ensure the removal of at least 3 accessory buildings or structures, including the provisions for the posting of securities to the satisfaction of the chief building official to ensure compliance with the zoning bylaw. So that would allow the applicant to keep the existing accessory buildings, for which there are more than 3 on the property right now. So they would be able to keep those structures on the property until such time that the proposed addition was constructed and that building was able to house the items that are currently stored in those buildings. And so that is all I have for the committee now, but if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, do you have anything you want to add to the application?
Honestly, I don't think so. Adam. Oh, sorry. Otherwise,
Should be good to go. Thank you.
Thanks. This is the first in-person public meeting I've done in 3 years, so and I don't know that I've ever held a microphone for one before. So thanks. My name is Josh Morgan. I'm a registered professional planner, and I'm here today representing Graham Kent. Graham's the property owner of 2929 Telford Line. This is a minor variance application. It's I think in my experience, it's about as minor of a variance application as they get. We're seeking to allow Mr. Kent to modestly increase the size of an existing garage, and that garage will still be, as Mr. Oster mentioned, that garage will still be quite a bit smaller in gross floor area than the house. And that's, I think, typically the test that staff looks at in terms of, like, I've done a whole bunch of minor variances for garages in Severn Township. I think that committee members that are back here have probably seen a lot of applications related to garage sizes, and that's because the township zoning bylaw provides fairly stringent maximum gross floor areas for garages. So that results in a lot of minor variance applications. And in my experience, what staff typically looks at when they evaluate these things is making sure that the garage is smaller in size than the house. And in this case, we've illustrated that it is. I think the big picture here is that this addition can be accommodated without the removal of any trees. It's going to extend on an existing sort of gravel area. So really, the site won't change at all, except for the fact that you'll see a small addition to an existing garage. As Mr. Oster mentioned, staff is recommending a demolition agreement, which Mr. Kent is amenable to. There was some concern expressed from my office to staff about the quantity of the securities that the township might ask for the removal of these 3 accessory buildings. Really, we're talking about 2 tents and a small metal shack. They're like tarp tents with metal posts. And I understand that the committee's not here to make a decision on the quantity of those securities, but I'd just like to kind of put on the record that we will be requesting to the building official that quantum of securities be low. I think $1,000 is more than enough. We're talking about some structures that could come down in no time at all and be taken to waste disposal facility by Mr. Kent himself. So that's it for me. Happy to answer any of your questions. Thanks.
Thank you. For persons who have either questions or wish to speak in favor or in opposition to the application, please address your questions through me. The applicant may be asked to respond to each party. When commenting, please give your name and address for the minutes. I know there's nobody for this application that's registered online. So are there any individuals in person who wish to make an oral submission to the committee? Seeing that there's none, I declare the public portion of the application closed. Do any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide comments on this application? Seeing none. Okay, and there's no other further committee discussion. I'm going to call for a motion. So I have a motion identified as COA 2023-010, moved by member Gunby, second by member Hiles, that the staff report D23-007 be received, and further that minor variance application A-03-23 be provisionally approved, subject to the conditions included as attachment 6 to staff report D23-007. So I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? We are carried. So the hearing for this application is now closed. You're free to stay if you wish for the remainder of the meeting or leave as the committee moves on to the next application. So moving forward, would township staff briefly introduce the application and report on any written response to the notice circulated for agenda item E2, which is an application for minor variance identified as A-02-23.
Thank you, Chair. The next application is an application for minor variance affecting the lands municipally known as 3163 McLean Lake North Shore Road. So key map is provided on the screen, which depicts the location of the subject property. It is just east of the end or the start of the private portion of Ellis Road where it meets McLean Lake North Shore Road. Also being a private road in the northwest area of the township. Primarily residential seasonal recreational uses in this area of the township. This is an aerial imagery capture in the spring of 2022 of the subject property, just to provide further context for the lands. The land is currently vacant and has not been developed. So the property is currently zoned shoreline residential 3 with portions of environmental protection along the shoreline. The applicants are proposing to develop the lands with a single detached dwelling featuring an attached garage and deck. The applicants are seeking a reduced shoreline setback where 20 meters is required. The applicants are seeking a reduced front yard setback of 14.68 for the dwelling and the attached deck having a front yard setback of 12.4. Upon receipt of the complete application, planning staff tried to conduct an evaluation of the application against the applicable policy as prescribed by the Planning Act. Through that review process of both the planning department and the building division, it was determined that further information is required and is therefore requested as described within the staff report. It's a little hard to see, but this is the site plan as submitted by the applicants with their application. Highlighted on the screen is where the proposed dwelling would be in relation to the shoreline. Just for clarification, the conceptual shoreline structures being the boathouse and the dock indicated on the site plan are not a part of this application. The application this evening is just to contemplate and discuss the proposed variances related to the construction of the dwelling. So as with any minor variance application in the province of Ontario, conformity with provincial policy, being the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe must be demonstrated. So in the context of the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the property would be considered lands adjacent to a key hydrologic feature. In this case being Jerry Bay of McLean Lake. The growth plan includes rigorous and detailed natural heritage policies to ensure the long-term protection and stability of those natural heritage or hydrologic features. More specifically, the growth plan establishes what is called a vegetation protection zone or a VPZ with a minimum setback of 30 meters measured from the shoreline from the edge of Cherry Bay, in this case inland. Development is restricted by the growth plan within the VPZ. So as detailed within the staff report, the application does contemplate development within that 30-meter setback. The growth plan does provide certain exceptions for areas along inland lakes that are designated for development, provided that that development would allow and promote the restoration of that shoreline area to the maximum extent that is possible. Based on a preliminary review of the application and a site inspection completed by staff, there's still open question if the proposed location of the dwelling is the optimal location to reduce impact or impediment to that VPZ and the immediate shoreline area. Through the completion of a site inspection, it was noted that a lot of the vegetation in the immediate shoreline area seems to have been removed from the property since that aerial imagery was captured in the spring of 2022. So that is something that is considered in the application as well. Speaking to that, further information would be requested to demonstrate how the restoration of the shoreline would be achieved through the application. So at this time, there's not enough information or planning justification for staff to offer an informed opinion on the requested variances at this time. The Planning and Development Department would just request a deferral for committee's consideration. The applicants may wish to consider the submission of a shoreline restoration plan, including various mature vegetation, including varying heights and densities. The applicants could also or may wish to reconsider the proposal or determine other design configurations to try and maximize the restoration of that shoreline area to the greatest extent that would be possible. This could include additional planning justification to demonstrate how the applicable planning policies are being met and upheld through the proposal. Another note that was provided by the building division relevant to the application and the context of the PBS specifically. The deputy chief building official notes that further information related to the location and design of the on-site septic system would be required to fully evaluate it to determine if the location proposed is suitable to actually support the development. So from a planning perspective, this could also affect potential site layouts or the development envelope should that location need to be moved or adjusted. So overall, this could impact the requests as have been submitted. So on the screen is just an example of what the Severn Sound Environmental Association has provided the township as an example vegetation protection zone or shoreline buffer. This is very detailed, not typically as rigorous as we have seen. This would be an ideal situation. But you can see on the screen that the house is located 30 meters back from the shoreline outside of that VPZ, with that shoreline being fully restored. Again, it's not intended to block someone's view of the lake. As you can see, there is space for viewing of the water, but it is intended to ensure that the habitat and that key natural hydrologic feature is being protected and to ensure that the shoreline doesn't experience high levels of erosion and items of that matter. Again, the VPZ, the growth plan does allow for limited development within that VPZ, provided that it is demonstrated that that shoreline area can be restored to the maximum extent that would be possible. So these are the proposed elevations of the drawing, just for context for the committee this evening. This would be the side of the house that would face Jerry Bay. This is a site photo that was captured by staff. As you can see, as you look to the left side of the screen, that would be where the shoreline is. There is quite a lack of vegetation from the shoreline inland, requiring further information about the restoration of that shoreline buffer on the subject property. Again, just some further photos captured by staff for context of the application. Not much to see. The property is currently undeveloped, but there for your information. So as noted, throughout the staff report, a detailed recommendation is not provided at this time. Pending receipt of further information as requested by staff, we would request a deferral to give the applicants opportunity to reconsider the application and demonstrate conformity with the prescribed documents. Again, the comment from the Deputy Chief Building Official provided within the staff report regarding the septic system and request for further information related to its design and location. So that being said, the Planning and Development Department would request a deferral of the application to a future meeting pending receipt of that as of the information as outlined within the staff reports. And thank you, Chair. That's all I have for this at this time.
Perfect. Does the applicant or their agent have anything further to add to the application? Come on up and grab a microphone.
I'm gonna need that light.
Oh, you will for online.
Good.
Should be good here.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to give you a little bit of the history of the property, if I may, please. Betty and I purchased the property. This is my wife Betty behind me. We purchased the property November 30th of last year. And we quickly learned that they didn't even realize that this was a lot for multiple decades. There is a road association, as Emily pointed out there. There's a yearly cost for maintaining the road and that. And they approached us and said, we had no idea that this was ever a lot. And most of the neighbors that we talked about, we met most of the neighbors, and they also didn't know that this was a lot. There's a small cottage on either side of us that with this lots in the middle. So after purchasing the lot, we decided we were going to put a cottage up. That cottage that you saw there is 1,036 square feet. Okay, so it's not a large cottage. Now that's not including the deck though. Okay, the deck is 5 feet on top of that on the outside. So we proceeded with, we wanted to use local tradesmen, local people from the area. We hired strongmen, a survey company. I think you folks would be familiar with them. They did the survey and they did the topple. And then we discussed the site plan because it's such a small lot. We wanted to make all the setbacks for the property as much as we could. So we leaned on strongman's shoulders there that for the site plan, we want to make sure that our cottage is going to fit. And the most important, you're not going to get the septic system. We have to make sure that that fits. So he said, listen, they do septics as well. He said that we will see if the footprint of the septic is going to fit with the cottage with the setbacks. So what we achieved was the area, the footprint for the septic, which is a raised bed septic, he said is ample room there, what he has in order to have a raised bed septic there. And the cottage that we're putting up, we were able to make the setbacks on both sides. I think it's 5 meters, but anyway, both sides we've made the setbacks. From the street, we made the setbacks. We also were able to accomplish the roof area where you can only have a certain amount of roof area coverage from your whole lot. We were able to accommodate that, as well as the height of the home. We were going to do that. The only one that we could not achieve was how close we were to the water. So it seems for positioning of the cottage, we had a picture up there before with it. It's very difficult. Our cottage is only 34 feet in depth. That's not very wide. 34 foot in depth. That's in total. Is not a lot. So, I mean, if you try to, maybe move that cottage closer to the road or something, but I think what we achieved was reasonable. And that's the term that when I was talking with your team members, when we were asking about applying for the variance, they said, as long as you're reasonable, if you use reasonable throughout your project, you're not going to have an issue. Well, I think we achieved that very good. The only is just getting a little closer. So, as for the shoreline restoration, that Emily had mentioned there, we took down some trees where the septic was going to go because it has to be cleaned out. He gave us the area. They did an on-site inspection as well as, you know, to put the report together. And, any trees that we've removed from now is where we were going to put the cottage. And there's a large rock there. Did you notice on the picture? You could see that the snow there. That's actually a large rock right in the middle of the property. So the local guy that we're going to use when we get to that will be shaving that rock down. And that is where the cottage is going to sit. So there's not much room to move your cottage around. So when I hear them say, perhaps you want to relook, you can't make it much. 34 feet is not big. We couldn't even find one smaller. So the shoreline restoration, Betty and I are, we used to own a tree farm in Ancaster here, and we value trees. We don't like to take trees down. We took down 3 trees right on the front of the water. It broke my heart. But one of them was dead. One the beavers had eaten, like right almost through. And I even spoke with the association, the road association, and said, you know, like, damn, man, you think we can leave that tree or no? No, in the name of safety, it has to come down. So we did. We took it down. We took 3 trees. We never took no vegetation from the front of the water at all. There was no vegetation. There was a lot of poison ivy on the rock itself. We were warned about that. And the rock removal guy, who's going to do that job, he wants it all stripped clean of everything and scraped clean in the name of safety for when he's shaving it down. That was the reason why we took anything around that rock off. The only other trees we took was where the septic's gonna go. So, today, when they speak of the septic, we weren't putting our application in for a septic system today. That wasn't our intention. Our intention through Strongman was the footprint will fit for a raised bed septic. And he said, yes, it will. He also added, which we don't have in our drawings, an extra bathroom. They do a calculation. He used a calculation of T50 saturation, which is at the high end. This is what he was telling me. And that the footprint for this, which we would have drawings and everything when we submit to get our building permit as well, we would submit all the drawings for our septic as well. But he used a T50 saturation, which is at the highest end. And he said, I was able to also add an extra bathroom. You may someday want to put another bathroom in, but that footprint is large enough to do that. So today, Betty and I thought we were here because we wanted to make sure that we don't do this thing, you know, put the cart in front of the horse. We wanted to make sure that we were able to get our variance here, the minor variance, okayed. And then the next thing is we would put in for our building permit and our septic with the proper drawings. Our builder is also a licensed septic guy. So when I read the report, it kind of, they talked a lot about the septic, but when we put in for our septic approval, the city at that time, if there's something that's amiss or you're not making something, which I don't believe is the case, we can deal with it then. I thought today we would just deal with the minor variance for being that close. And I think I've covered all the points. Did you have anything you wanted to say there? No? And that's it. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you. So we'll just proceed through the agenda and we might circle back to you.
Is this on? Nope.
Dropping the mic. Okay. For persons who either present who have either questions or wish to speak in favor of or in opposition to the application, please address your questions through me. The applicant may be asked to respond to each party. When commenting, please give your name and address for the minutes. Can township staff please advise if there are any persons present on Zoom who wish to make oral submissions to the committee with respect to the application? So I know we had a couple people registered. and-
Yes, thank you, Chair. There are 2 attendees that have registered to participate in the public meeting via Zoom this evening. I will invite Gino Sinkovich. If you would like to unmute your microphone and speak to the application at this time, you're welcome to do so.
Hello, do we need the camera on as well?
That would be up to you.
Why not? Good evening, everyone. My participation in this meeting was simply to make sure that I understood what the application was for. I don't have a lot of particular experience with this, so learning process for me. I saw when the lot was sold, you know, there was some, I don't want to call it clear cutting, but lots of, you know, it was impossible to say what kind of species of trees and whatever was there. But listen, I understand it's a lot. It's a beautiful area. You know, we have a small cottage at the very tip of Jerry Bay. So we just wanted to understand what this application entailed and what impact it was going to potentially have on those around. So my main concern was really the boathouse. I saw on the letter that was sent out that it looked like a boathouse was being put in there. So but that's been made clear by Emily that it's not part of this application. So based on what I've heard, it's an irregular shaped property. They are going to have their hands tied to put a structure in there, and obviously you can't build something that's, you know, 80 feet tall and 10 feet wide to accommodate all the setbacks. So from what I'm hearing, I don't have any particular opposition to reduce that setback area from the water line to accommodate that structure. My only comment would be that you know, the shoreline restoration and just making sure that towards the, you know, the end of the project, that anything that needs to be done to restore and protect the natural aspects of the property would be respected. That's all.
Perfect. Thank you. I didn't hear any questions there, just a couple comments. So
Good comments. Yep.
thank you for that. And
Thank you, Chair. We can move on to our next registered participant, Manny and Angie Regato. If you'd like to unmute your microphone, you're welcome to do so now.
Hi, yes. We don't have a lot of concerns. Our main concern is because we're directly beside this lot, is the shading of the rock that has to be done. What type of impact is that going to have on the dwellings that are surrounding the lot? That's a concern that I have. And how is this shading of the rock going to happen? Is it drilling? Is it
so that's a question.
yes.
You can speak. Yeah. Grab the microphone and then just respond.
Turn it on for you.
Oh, okay. Hello, Manny.
Hello.
I think I can address your question. That the rock removal guy had said to us the procedure for doing this is your cottage and Bill and Marion Branson's on the other side.
Mhm.
And the 2 cottages across the street, Chuck's cottage and what's the name of the other guy there, Ben? And Brent.
Right.
They will be inspected at my cost for the your cottage will be inspected prior to any removal of the rock. And then the rock would be removed and then the inspections, of course, would play after that. He said they have had 0 problems at all through his career in the rock removal. They just removed the rock on the other side of McLean Lake. We went over and saw the job that they did. It was a lot more than what we're taking, you know, shaving our rock down. I appreciate your concern. And he has assured me that there would be no issue and there would be a full, like the, insurance on your property and the other properties that I mentioned, Manny. I'm hoping that, is satisfactory.
Yes, clarification, as long as there's inspector coming.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have it any other way.
Perfect.
Nor would Jeremy. Jeremy's the gentleman that owns the rock removal company. He's local up there as well. He's had no problems in his career for rock removal. And he also said that it's mandatory from his perspective that we do that, and that's what we would do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your explanation.
Yeah, for sure, man. And that's a great concern. While I'm speaking, aldermen's people, can I just add one more thing? Am I allowed to speak now?
Sure.
Okay, all I wanted to say is, that, as for the, reconstruction of the shoreline, as Emily had pointed out before, Betty and I don't think there's a need to defer the meeting because you can put it on our occupancy permit that you cannot receive your occupancy permit until we've brought the shoreline to the satisfaction of the planning staff. That would allow Betty and I to move forward to the next process, which is submitting our septic approval from the city. They can view it and hopefully we get that approved. And same with our building permit at the same time. That's why, back to what I said, was we were doing this hoping that we could go through with our minor variance today, which is that part of it. That's why I thought we were here today. But thank you very much.
Okay. Do you have any other questions? Angie and Manny?
Nope, not at the moment. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm going to move forward. Are there any individuals in person who wish to speak or make an oral submission to the committee? I guess no. So if there's no further questions or comments, I declare the public portion of the application closed. Do any members of the committee require further clarification or wish to provide comments on this application? Member Gunby.
First time with a new microphone. It's more of just a comment of clarification that planning staff don't like to have to come to these meetings and suggest deferral unless there's an absolute reason for it. And I think, and staff can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the reasoning behind this is if we were to approve this today and then the person doing your drawings who just says that there's going to be room for a septic, it turns out there actually isn't, and you have to move a couple more feet, you're just going to come back here anyways and go through this whole process again. So it might not feel like it now, but if the committee does vote to defer it, it's still technically saving you a little bit of time in case anything happens.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess the alternative.
No, just
I'm sorry. I'm not a septic expert, but my understanding is if a raised bed septic would not fit, we would go to an enhanced system, which takes up even less square feet than what we've initially proposed. So there is an alternative to, like, if to speak to your question, what if it's not enough room and you guys will have to come back? If there's not enough room, there's plan B, I guess. Yeah.
Member Bossy.
I just had it on the diagram on where the house sits on the lot. I don't know if you can pull it up. Yeah. I don't know if you can blow it up, probably not. Where it's the one corner of the house. Do we know the distance? No, the other corner. Where it says lot 16, that corner.
Yes.
What's the distance or estimated distance to the shore or to the shoreline or what would the setback be there?
Yeah, you just have to speak into the microphone.
So from the lot 16 side to the water's edge there, the setback is 20 meters and we have 14.68, so we're 17 feet away.
Meters. Meters?
No, I changed it to feet. We're 17 feet away, so it's 20 meters. And then ours is 14.68 meters, which leaves you 5.32 meters. So we're 5.32 meters converted to feet is 17.5 feet. This is from Strongman.
Yeah, if we're talking the same thing, because for the one corner, you're asking for 14.6 or 12.4 setback to the deck.
With the deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, the deck is it's 16.5 meters proposed, and we have 12.4 meters.
But how about the other side where lot 16 is?
It's less than that. Yeah, you see how the house comes out here? It's so from this point here to here, it's slightly less as a lot comes in. Measurements were taken from the center.
Oh, from the center. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, and as for the septic, just to address that, what Betty was saying as well. I mean, I have full confidence in Strongman. They were very good. When he was doing it, he said, listen, we got to do as much as we can to make this fit. And we had to make adjustments to make this cottage fit. And he said, that is it there. Now, our builder, local builder, Chris, he also said that, yeah, when you get through your variance here, the next step is you bring it to me and I'll do the drawings and we'll send it in for approval. We have no issue that it's going to go through because he's assured us that there's enough room there to go through. And if there is a reason, as Betty said, the building department is not going to give you any relief on a septic, and nor should they. We don't want that either. And a raised bed septic is your optimum septic system. We live on septic system as well. And a raised bed, they've been around for 100 years, are good. But having said that, if you can't do it for a reason, if they find a reason why you can't, well, then we can always put an enhanced system in. And like the Waterloo biofilter, there's a few other ones. They're very expensive. They work well, but we're better off to have like everybody else has up there, raised bed septic. But anyway, I'll leave it with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Just through to township staff, could you just maybe go walk through the requested variance and how it pertains to the shoreline and the building and all
And
that?
from where to where?
Yeah, just so that everyone's fully understanding.
Thank you, Chair. So the minor variance, when the notice is being circulated, it's for the request at the nearest point to the shoreline. So as you can see, the survey indicates on the right-hand side there, measured to the closest point of the deck from the most inland portion of the shoreline is 12.40 meters. So that is where that setback would be measured from for the request to the deck. Similarly, where the house is at its closest point to the water, that's what that requested number would be for as well.
Thank you. I'm gonna continue on. I do have a comment, and it kind of goes back to member Gunby's comment. Township staff, we know that you put a lot into this application. and township staff have put their time into going through the application. There is some loose ends that needed to be tidied up, and there's a lot of planning policies, a lot of documents out there, whether they be the Golden Horseshoe documents or other planning justification documents that are out there, that we have to dot our I's and cross our T's, and or they have to do that. So it might be a frustration to you that a deferral would happen tonight. But I think I would recommend a deferral, and would hopefully the committee recommends a deferral so we can tidy up those things. There would be nothing more frustrating than us approving an application that is not complete and have those I's dotted and T's crossed, then find you back here 2 months from now, 3 months from now, trying to tidy up those things. So I think if we were to defer the application tonight, it might be frustrating tonight, but you can get on the blower with township staff tomorrow, the next day, and figure it out so we can come back next month, approve your application, and then you can get on with the construction phase. Yeah, I think you would. I think to answer your question, I think if you just give them a phone call and we can go through, they can go through that. No, they can go through that with you. I'm not going to be here tomorrow. But you can go through that with them. They're more than supportive and will help you along your way to tell you what you need. Okay, I've been doing this for a number of years, and there's been that. So I'm gonna continue on. Is there any other committee questions or comments to this application? Just yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, new to this. My only question or comment would be why taking the minor variance to the setback from the water versus taking a minor variance to the setback from the road? I don't know, maybe that's a worse thing, I don't know. But being it's in my eyes, a private road, being closer to the road wouldn't be as big of a deal. I don't know from a planning standpoint how that is taken, but that's kind of my comment or question.
So I'm gonna pass that through to the planning staff first and see if they want to answer that first.
Thank you, Chair, through to Member Kish. So we can't really direct the applicants for what they'd want to propose. However, the policy document does speak to maximizing the restoration of the shoreline to the maximum extent possible. Planning staff do note that along this stretch of McLean Lake North Shore Road, it does look like a lot of houses being along a private road are closer to the road than they are to the water. However, again, that's up to the applicant's discretion on how they would like to proceed with that. The private road is not publicly maintained, so there's lesser concern from the Public Works Department for how close the structure would be to the private road in that case, but I can't speak on their behalf.
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, please. Okay.
Just microphone, just the microphone. It's all good.
Thank you, Councillor Kish. No, that was a good question, and that was a question that was presented to your team. I spoke with Mr. Andros, Jeff Andros, a few times prior to us applying. I wanted to make sure that we were reasonable. And so that question came up through Strongman. He said, listen, you got one or two ways you can go. You could move it closer to the street, which gives you more relief on the water's edge. But from what crosses my desk sometimes, now he's not about to say anything, and I'm not going to say that, but he said, you will probably get a little better relief if you were a little closer to the water and stayed on kept your 7 meters on the street. I don't know if you noticed, are you able to put the house one back up, please, Brad? I just wanted to show you a little on this street the slide that you had with it had the dock and the boathouse and the Councillor Bossy was referring to. Because they had mentioned how the road goes, it's kind of on a turn there. You'll see it on here. There it is there. If you notice, am I okay to just
Go ahead.
here? You can see the road right here kind of impinges on our property a bit. So Strongman had said, you know, you're probably better off because positioning the home, remember, it's only 34 feet in depth, as I told you. So he said, your best positioning is to move it over here. He had a reason why this area was best for the septic because there was very little trees on that. It was all, and there's no rock there. It's all soil. This here is all rock. So we're better to put the home here. He says, but you see how the road's impinged on your property a bit. So by the time you move your house forward, you won't be able to put a car in the driveway. And I thought, oh, that's a good point, right? You need 20 feet for your vehicle, right? And we're only at 21 feet. I think it is 7.5 meters. So it made it difficult to move the house. You might be able to get a foot or two, and we'd be willing to do that. But I think it's very reasonable to put it there and you're just a little bit closer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other further committee discussion? So I know there was a little bit of a discussion with regards to deferral. So I'm going to call for a motion for deferral and we'll vote on that first. Okay, sorry, I'm just reading it through. So I have a motion that's identified as COA 2023-011, moved by member Hiles, second by member Kish, that staff report D23-006 be received, and that minor variance application A-02-23 be deferred to a later committee of adjustment meeting pending further information as outlined in staff report D23-006, including receipt of further information related to the on-site septic system design and location to the satisfaction of the building department, receipt of information regarding a detailed shoreline restoration plan, and further that the applicants review the limited policy analysis within staff report D2306 and consider revised submission and or further planning justification. Is there any further discussion? Nope. So I'm going to call for a vote on the deferral. All those in favor? We are carried. So the hearing for the application is now closed. So as I mentioned before, Byra, you get on the blower with township staff and knock out the items, and I'm sure we'll see you back next month. Okay. No, and no, it's just deferred, so it's the same there. No, you can just phone them tomorrow and you'll get all that. You won't get the minutes. Yeah. So I'm going to move on. So you're free to stay or you can leave and go. We're going to move on in our agenda. There's no reports from officials, but we do have some correspondence. So would staff update the correspondence received?
Thank you, Chair. So this is more just for your information to kind of gauge interest, particularly for the new members of committee. So the Ontario Association of the Committees of Adjustment, we call it OCA for short, just in case you're wondering where that acronym comes from. So they do offer a video series about the powers of the committee, the types of applications, kind of those types of items, which would be supplemental to the training provided by township staff last week. They were recently updated in 2023 to reflect all of those new changes to the Planning Act that we saw at the end of last year come into place. There's about 6 videos, 10 to 15 minutes in duration. They do come with some informational handouts. We were just kind of trying to see if committee had any interest in planning staff arranging for those videos to be available to you guys. They're available for like a span of 3 weeks. So we would just organize it so one person has it for each week for the new members. And if any of the returning members would like to view them as well, we can arrange for that. You might go to the next. I just took this, it's hard to see, of course. I just took this from the OCA website. It kind of goes over what each video would cover. So a planning overview, consents, minor variances, site visits, meeting protocol, conflict of interest, all of those kind of things. It would kind of just be a meat and potatoes version of what we discussed last week in a bit more detail. If that would be valuable to the new members and returning members, that's something we can arrange. So just wanted to present that information to you this evening.
Okay. Go ahead. No.
So if the committee was interested in receiving the video series, if you would just reach out and let us know, then we can get that ordered. That works.
Okay.
There you go. You got your answer.
We just have a motion to receive it for information this evening.
Okay. So got a motion that's moved or that's motion identified as COA 2023-012, moved by member Kish, second by member Gunby, that the correspondence for the from planning staff regarding the OCA training updates be received for information. So I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? This is carried. So thank you. I'm going to move and call for a motion for adjournment. So I have a motion that's identified as COA 2023-013, moved by member Gunby, second by member Bossy, that the Committee of Adjustment be adjourned at 7:35 on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor? And we are carried.